Hey, everybody. It is Tuesday, December 19th. This is the award-winning RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. I'm Dr. A. That is Mark Schwartz, formerly of ESPN, all-star reporter, fantasy basketball, fantasy sports legend in my mind. We played a lot of fantasy sports together, and we're going to talk fantasy hoops right after this jam. Mark, what is happening, man?
Doc, things are great. Retirement is incredible. I'm seeing music on the weekly, and I got 2 grandkids now, so it just doesn't get any better than that.
You're brimming. You're exuding elation right now. I can tell you've never been happier. Like not working and not having to report to anyone, not having that responsibility must be a pretty cool feeling.
It's incredibly liberating. I highly recommend it at some point for everybody.
For those of you who don't know, Mark was at ESPN for a long time. I think you actually, I think, contacted me one time with a fantasy basketball question. And I was like, wait a second. I know this name. And I was like, wait, is this the Mark Schwartz from ESPN? You're like, yeah. And then we ended up in some leagues together. We made an epic hockey trade. Mark got me into hockey when the NBA was shut down one year. So I played some hockey, helped him out with his keeper team, with some trades. Do you have a favorite story or a favorite time from when you were at ESPN that sticks out for you? I know that when the whole Penn State Joe Paterno thing went down, you were camped out in front of Joe's house for a week. It felt like, and there's constant reports, and you were on my TV constantly. I'm like, oh, there's my friend Mark. But what are a couple of your favorites?
Well, it was incredible covering Penn State because you had a very insular little town in State College, Pennsylvania, where so many of the people's lives revolved around that story and that school. And you're right. I was outside Joe Paterno's house doing a live shot, which is a hard thing to do when people are watching anyway. But these people were all looking at me with needles. And, they said, how's it going out there, Mark? And I said, you know what? The people in this town are really angry at us right now for being here. And I understand that. And once I said that, the whole crowd kind of softened. I was like, wow, this guy's a human being. But I can't even, we don't have enough time, but Mike Tyson once told me to get the F out of his gym. He was face to face with me. He thought I was defying him. I went back in to get my bag, and he and I were standing, within a foot of each other. He said, I thought I told you to get the F out of my gym. I said, I am. I just had to get my computer.
And we talked a little bit before the show. You're still playing fantasy sports. That's still one of your music and fantasy sports are your things. That's sort of what my things are too. Probably why we get along.
Gotta be it.
Are you? Is fantasy hoops your favorite one?
It is. I'm the commissioner of hockey, hoops, football, and baseball. They all have incredibly different, feels to them and demands to them. But, our basketball league is just epic. And, when I beat my son on the final day, coming from hundreds of points behind with 88 from Austin Reeves and 97 from Amir Coffey on a Sunday, that was probably the greatest moment in fantasy sports for me ever. Amir Coffey, baby.
That's awesome.
Remember that game?
Folger. They call him
Folger Soldier?
Folger Soldier, yeah. Yeah, he had a good game the other day, and I was like, where's the Folger Soldier been? Yeah, I'm playing my son this week in our rock and roll league with all those rock stars in it. Now he's got a good team this year, but man, I need Wembanyama to get out there. Speaking of which, Mark, let's jump into some of this news from a relatively very busy Monday night. first of all, this Wembanyama, Chet Holmgren phenom race for Rookie of the Year has been pretty fun. It's probably been the most fun I've had following something like this since Luka and Trey were traded for each other. Although this one's even better than that, I think. Chet Holmgren has 34 points, 17 rebounds, and 15 blocks over his last 2 games. Wemby is taking tonight off. That is killer because they only played 3 games this week anyway, I think, and now it's going to make it 2. And when he missed a game last time, they were in the middle of a 2-game week, so his 2-game week became a 1-game week. But Wemby, when he plays, he's been awesome. Chet is on fire right now. And what's your take on Chet and Wemby?
Well, Chet, when he hit that 3 to put that game against Golden State in overtime, I mean, my respect level for him grew infinitely. I mean, that guy is just an incredible baller. And what a great pick, and certainly, worth waiting for if you had him in fantasy last year as a keeper, which one of the guys in my league did. He just held him. And it turns out brilliant. And then he drafted Wemby in the 2nd round this year. So he's got both of those dudes. And, I thought I was smart, and I picked Cade Cunningham ahead of Wemby. And I was like, I can't believe that dude picked Wemby when Cade Cunningham was on the board. And you know what? I mean, right now, I'm probably going to take an L for that, even though Cade went crazy last night. But Wemby, since Pop moved him closer to the basket, I mean, that to me has been a game changer. I'm just stunned that it took Pop this many weeks to figure that out.
Well, I mean, I have a different guest on this podcast every Tuesday. And every Tuesday we try to figure out, has Pop lost it? Is Pop just a professional tanker at this point?
Hell no.
Is Pop what are they doing in San Antonio? Because a lot of people are mad that Sohan is starting at point guard instead of Trey Jones.
Yeah.
For the first couple weeks, it was Zach Collins out there in the middle, and now it's Wemby. So I don't know. I don't really know what Pop is doing, honestly.
I can tell you he's not tanking. I mean, that guy is ruthlessly competitive. And, Sohan at point guard is just as head scratching as Wemby, out on the floor hoisting threes all the time. So, yeah, I mean, I have to question some of his police work there, as they say in Fargo. But I don't know. I mean, right now, things are going to be better. But they really do need to find a legitimate point guard. They should have signed Tyus Jones.
Yeah. And, we're going to get to the Wizards in a minute because that is something that is mind-boggling to me as well. Hey, everybody, it's Mark Schwartz, Dr. A. Mark Schwartz, formerly of ESPN. We're talking fantasy hoops. Ja Morant, Mark, is coming back tonight. Today's the day.
Sweet.
He's going to play on Tuesday, make his debut after a 25-game suspension. Do you have any shares of Ja Morant in your fantasy leagues? And whether you do or not, what are you looking for tonight?
I'm looking for a high wire act that nobody else can perform. I'm looking for 30 points, 10 assists, 11 rebounds. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to do that from the jump, but he's going to try to do that from the jump. And he's probably going to jump over somebody's head like he always does. I mean, last year, a guy in my league who was new to the league drafted Ja and Zion with his first 2 picks. And I said, dude, you are such a beginner. But you know what? If they stayed healthy, that's like the most fun duo you can get. Who wants to see, Embiid backing down people? I mean, I'd rather see Zion and Ja flying in the air. So I get that. But I mean, Ja is, because of the style of play, he will go down he will crumple in a heap. And unfortunately, especially the fact that he hasn't played all year, I do worry about that factor. But I love Bane with a passion. And I also love Triple J with a passion. And I think people are worried about them now. Like, oh, wow, Ja's going to take all of the goodies. Heck no. I mean, Bane is a brilliant playmaker. And Bane has learned a lot about how to play in this league with Ja on the sideline. And he's always been great when Ja's been out. So I'm looking forward to see if Memphis can actually put something together because they have so much talent in that top three.
So they're 6-19. Here's my thoughts on Ja coming back. I feel like a little bit like your Mike Tyson story. I feel like Ja Morant's been locked in a cage like an angry tiger for 3 months, and he's going to come out and just, like when you give your dog a bath and you let it, he's wet and you let him outside and he just goes running out the yard and just goes ballistic. Like I kind of feel like Ja's going to come out and just start throwing down on everybody in his way. He's probably going to be so amped up. The first game could be a little shaky, but eventually he's just going to start destroying people. And then I think this opens things up for Triple J, opens things up for Desmond Bane.
Yep.
And I think Memphis is going to be highly focused and try to work their way back into this playoff hunt. I'm kind of excited to see Ja Morant. I've got a little over-under prop bet going with Ja Morant tonight at Underdog that we'll talk about when we're done with this news. So, yeah, I think both of us are excited about Ja. Bradley Beal out for a couple more weeks now with an ankle sprain. He's played in 6 games for the Suns this season. I did not touch him anywhere. I was telling people not to touch him. His lower legs scare the crap out of me. They have for the last 5 years. He's never really lived up to the hype. He was an okay alpha dog. We've never really seen him as a C player. And I just it's terrible. And then you add in the fact that he's gone for 2 more weeks. You're like, oh, I'll pick up Grayson Allen. I'll pick up Eric Gordon. Well, they only have 2 games this week, so that doesn't work either. What are your thoughts on Beal?
I wish I would have called you that time when I was about to grab him in the 5th round. I mean, I grabbed him in the 5th round of my draft, and I thought I was the smartest guy in the entire universe. I'm like, because he was ranked very, very low on ESPN, and I just didn't understand it. I mean, if this guy was able to stay healthy, I thought that this was like a steal in the 5th round. Now, the back problems are the big concern. I mean, I thought that there's a chance he could be laboring with this the entire year. Now, I saw the play where he landed on DiVincenzo. I mean, guys land on people's feet in every NBA game. I mean, that's just a bad break. And it was too bad because he was just coming back from the back relatively early. And so, I mean, I still hold hope that if he does not have any more nagging back issues, I think Booker and Duren are going to take full advantage of the fact that, it's not bad to have that guy in the corner. And he's a finisher too, and he's a dog. I mean, he's not what people think he is. And he was the 1B to John Wall for a long time. So he knows what that role is all about. And I get the sense from watching them that Durant and especially Booker really love Brad Beal.
All right. Well, maybe the 2 weeks off with the ankle will allow his back to fully heal. So maybe there's that. Your Detroit Pistons, Mark. I don't know if they're your Pistons or not, but they've lost 24 games in a row. They lost to the Hawks last night. Your guy, Cade Cunningham, scored 43 points. He's overrated fantasy player, in my opinion. Now, in a points league, he's probably pretty sweet. He's probably pretty fun guy to have on your roster. In a categories league, he does so many things poorly that the good kind of outweighs, or the bad kind of offsets the good. He's not ranked very high. He's like 15th round or whatever player.
Wow.
But anyway, Cade was pretty awesome last night, 43. And then our guy for the Hawks, Clint Capella, had 17 points, 15 boards, a steal, and 3 blocks. He's doubled in 3 straight, 5 of his last 7. What do you make of any of that mess I just talked about?
Well, I do think that the Pistons are a terribly flawed team, and Cade Cunningham is the featured player. He's going to draw the entirety of the defensive game plan. So that's a difficult place to be in for a guy who missed 70 games last year. Now, he does have some terrible flaws to his game, including his ball handling. I mean, he dribbles into situations that nobody needs to dribble into, but he does make some incredible plays. for other players. The problem is these other players are Alec Burks and Killian Hayes and Isaiah Stewart, and they don't often convert. Now, the guy I watched and the guy I drafted is Ausar Thompson, too. I got him later in the keep around for me. And he came out like a house of fire. The first few weeks for him were brilliant. And again, I felt real smart. And then Monty puts him on the bench and on ice for a while, and he really hasn't recovered from that. But in terms of just a guy who will jump out of the gym and could out-rebound just about anyone on the planet, I think that once he finds an outside shot, that's a guy that I'd want to have deep into the season when things get interesting. Capella's, I think Capella is just one of the most inconsistent players in fantasy hoops. I mean, he'll give you these 17 and 15 runs for a while, but don't you think Okongwu's better? And don't you think the Hawks will eventually realize like they're probably going to be better once they get Jalen back with Okongwu instead of Capella?
I'm surprised that Capella is playing as much as he is. I'm also surprised he's playing as well as he is. I was just kind of looking at his game log last night. Like, he's not really a guy I consider drafting this year. And you can, even though he's on fire, he's probably still not. He probably still doesn't have a real high price tag. If you need a center who is balling out right now, I think Capella is a good guy to target. And speaking of Monty, and speaking of Ausar Thompson, like Jaden Ivey and Ausar Thompson should both be getting 32 minutes a night alongside Cade. And the fact that we're 3-25 or 3-24, whatever their record is, and we're not playing Jaden Ivey and we're not playing Ausar Thompson enough minutes, that's a problem for me. Like, let the kids go out there and play. I don't need to see any more Killian Hayes. I certainly don't need to see any more Bojan Bogdanovic, for God's sake.
Well, the one thing they were hoping for is that Bogdanovic would spread the floor so that Thompson and Ivey would be more effective. But, when Duren gets hurt, everything kind of goes to hell. And, I really think if Monty has a full, healthy cast, if he gets Duren and he's got Cade, Ausar, Ivey, and Bojan to spread the floor. Now, I don't know if that lineup makes sense, but those to me are probably 5 of their best players. And I'd like to see it. Joe Harris is actually a sneaky guy who can make a difference spreading the floor too for them. Alec Burks was supposed to be the guy to do it. He did it for like 2 weeks, and then he's MIA.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. Jalen Duren goes down. I'm kind of like, okay, beef stew.
Nah.
Beef stew has to do it now, baby. It's beef stew time.
No way.
He just can't. He can't do it.
He's not that guy. Duren is. Duren is
Duren's a stud.
Yeah. With Jalen and with Duren and Ausar, that team is going to be scary on the boards. They're going to clear everything. Cade just has to stop throwing it over people's heads.
All right, let's interrupt this news break to look at a quick question from Eon. It says, hey, Doc and Mark, trade idea. Coby White, who is on fire, by the way. What a season he is having.
Insane.
And Cam Thomas, who scored, 36 last night, I think, for Pascal Siakam straight up. What are your thoughts? I'll go first, Mark. I think if Pascal Siakam ends up in Atlanta or stays in Toronto, I feel like it depends on how many teams are in your league, because I think you're giving up a lot of offensive firepower, especially in Mark's eyes, in a points environment. That's a lot of points to be given up. In a categories environment, you're helping yourself in a couple places, but it's still giving up a whole lot of firepower unless you've just got a guy you need to cut. I like the Coby and Cam side of that better, just because Coby White has been a really solid fantasy basketball point guard this year. Much better than I thought he was going to be.
Well, I think both Coby White and Cam Thomas have kind of taken this opportunity and run with it. Coby has a great chance with Levine on the sidelines. That team is a mess. There's not many people playing very well for Chicago. Coby White is probably that guy. He's playing better than Vucevic, DeRozan, and Levine put together. So, yeah, I mean, I would probably pull the trigger because I think Siakam is not happy right now in Toronto. I mean, he should have been and could have been a guy they built around, but they've gone in a different direction. I feel like his days in Toronto are numbered. And so who knows if he lands in a place like you're talking about, Atlanta, who knows how that will go. So Cam Thomas is crazy. I mean, I had him a little bit last year. I mean, that guy just won't quit shooting, and he's making them. So I would strike while the fire is hot. I'd probably do it.
So you would trade Pascal, Siakam to get those two guys?
I would.
Yeah. Okay.
I can't believe I'm saying that.
We both said the same thing. I'm generally a get the best player in the deal guy. Yeah. Even if you're giving up two to get one, make sure the one you're getting is the best player in the deal, which generally speaking, Siakam is.
For sure.
But I like what Coby and Cam potentially are going to do for the rest of the season. So I'm with you on that one. The LA Clippers have won 8 games in a row. And they went 0-5, and now they've gone 8-0 since the whole James Harden thing, I think, is what happened. Harden had 35 last night. He was making snow angels on the court on his back after the game.
During the game.
During the game.
Yeah.
During the game.
After he scored 18 points in the fourth quarter.
Is this thing going to work? Are you scared of the Clippers?
Well, I have seen Harden poison so many wells that when he first came over to the Clippers and they were losing every single night, I was really having secret schadenfreude about that. It wasn't even that secret. I thought, like, this guy is just going to kill another team. And, like Brian Windhorst said it best, Harden will win every time he holds out or refuses to play for a team. It has never not worked for James Harden. And so why would he stop doing what he's doing? His playbook works. But in terms of on the floor, I've changed 180 degrees on the Clippers. I've never really been enamored with the Clippers. I always felt they were overrated. People would always say, like on Inside the NBA, the Clippers are the team to beat in the West. They've been saying that for 4 years. And it's been so wrong. And now, for the first time, I'm finally seeing it. And they're finally fun to watch. Because I think Harden, I didn't believe all the garbage about, well, we're just kind of learning each other and we're figuring it out. We have a long way to go. The end product's going to be amazing to see. He's been promising that. And you know what? It's sort of arriving because Kawhi is healthy. And he's playing like I haven't seen him play back-to-backs. And Paul George is just a killer. And, Harden, when he is the man, is not the guy you want on your team. He should have been great last year with Embiid. I wasn't as high on him in the days in Brooklyn because Kyrie was there. And that was too problematic to have both of them. But I think with Kawhi and Paul George, those guys are ballers. They just want to win. And I think for the first time, Ty Lue might have a team that's capable of pulling off a deep playoff run.
I have two things about this. One, Russell Westbrook has sort of swallowed his whistle, I guess. I mean, I don't know what to say. Like he's accepted his role and is playing good soldier, and I think is also helping that team come together and play better also. I mean, I think you add him into the mix along with those big three that he's highly responsible for what's going on right now. Yeah. And the other thing I was going to say has completely left me and slipped my mind. So I'm gonna leave it there. But I think Westbrook deserves some credit there too. And then Bennedict Mathurin for the Pacers had 34 points last night. Are you a Mathurin disciple? Are you a freak?
I was so high on him during the tournament. He was my favorite player that year in the tournament. I said, I've got to have that guy. I was sure he was going to be a killer. And, I haven't been all that impressed. I feel like, obviously last night he went off. But in general, I'm not sure that his shot is really anything that scares you, as an outside shooter. I feel like he's part of a rotation, but I don't feel like he's a featured player in Indiana right now. I mean, he could be, but Haliburton's an equal opportunity distributor, and I mean, he made Obi Toppin look like Sean Marion there for a while. So, I mean, if Mathurin plays hard, he has a chance to be something, but I don't see him as a breakout player at all.
I like him. I like him a lot. He had 30 on December 11th. He had 34 last night. He had 6 the game before, to your point. That was against those defensive-minded, suddenly incredible Minnesota Timberwolves. So I'm a big Mathurin guy. I think we should be picking up Mathurin. We need to get Buddy Hield out of the way. That's where it starts. Also, the Pacers, losers of 5. No, they lost the championship game to the Lakers in the in-season tournament.
Yep.
Then they beat Detroit Pistons, and they've lost 4 in a row since then. So they've lost 5 of their last 6 games after waltzing through that tournament like it was buttered bread. So hopefully the Pacers get it turned around, because that's one of my squads. I love Tyrese. I love their mix of old and new. I like what Rick Carlisle's, just forget about defense. Just get out there and run to our strengths. They're pretty fun. But
Haliburton's a transcendent player. And, I mean, I was lucky as hell that he lasted. I had the 11th pick. And believe it or not, Lillard goes 9th. I was bummed. Curry goes 10th. And there's Haliburton in a league where 3-point shots are everything in my points format. And I just scooped Haliburton up and said, thank you very much. And, I'm one of those guys, when I hear TNT say, well, this is the first time that Haliburton has ever been on TNT. I'm like, you guys should have kept that to yourselves. That's nothing to be proud of, And like the national, I used to be part of it, but the national media gets on there and says, this Tyrese Haliburton is a really good player. Have you seen him play? No, I have never seen him play. It's like Jokic last year. Well, I wasn't familiar with his game until he won the second MVP. Like, come on, get with it.
That's funny. But when he got traded to Indiana, I have, that's where I'm from, a lot of friends, and I was getting a lot of text messages like, is Haliburton any good? Like, we just get screwed on this trade because Sabonis is so good. I mean, no, dude, you guys killed that trade. I can't believe Sacramento traded Tyrese Haliburton. Now, to their credit, De'Aaron Fox is playing well. Their whole franchise has turned around, has a totally different mindset than it had when Tyrese got traded. But still, man, they're going to look back on that one day and be like, yeah, it helped us, but it also hurts a little bit. So a couple more things. Bam Adebayo, heroic triumphant return last night. I didn't know when he was coming back, Mark. I was scared he was going to miss a lot of time, but he's back. Tyler Herro, after missing, I think, 18 games, he was back. They both played pretty well for the Heat last night. How good are the Heat now that they're healthy again? And where are you with Jaime Jaquez?
The one thing I noticed about Jaquez last night was he had 4 fouls. That was in the box. I don't know if he had them early enough in the game where it was a problem, but he played 30 minutes. That was the most minutes on Spoel's bench last night was Jaquez. More than Josh Richardson, certainly more than Duncan Robinson. So, I mean, that's revealing to me. I mean, it could have been a matchup thing, but Jaquez is a Heat kind of player. I mean, he would fit in with any team, but the Heat identified him because he does so many things well. The guy I really love on that team, and I know probably this is not a take that most people would agree with, is Caleb Martin. I mean, you saw him against Boston in the playoffs. I mean, that guy can ball. And that's all he's done for the last 2 weeks. Now, he had a very bad game last night. His shot wasn't falling. And Spo didn't play him as much late. but I think he's won that starting job over Highsmith for sure. And, the only thing is there's a lot of mouths to feed, but you got the master puppet master in Spo. I mean, nobody coaches better than that guy. I mean, he doesn't need Jimmy and Bam and Herro to play every night. He just doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, he gets it done with this other cast of characters, and they have a lot of great weapons. And I wouldn't want anybody else to run my team, especially a team like that.
Well, your guy who couldn't make a shot last night was actually in my FanDuel lineup and kind of ruined that whole thing. But like you said, man, he's kind of a dog. Like, he goes after it, both ends of the court. Caleb Martin is all hustle all the time. Probably available in a bunch of leagues too. Like, I think he's worth looking at. I mean, he's going to start for the Heat. And then Jaquez, I mean, he just looks like he belongs out there with the starters. He looks like he fits in. He looks like a team leader. He plays with confidence. He can fit in anywhere. He got 30 minutes even with Bam and Herro back. I mean, the world is his oyster. I think initially I thought Jaquez was going to go away, but now I don't think he's going to. He's locked in, and he's going to end up being a huge part of that Heat team for years to come, probably. They're going to sell a lot of Jaquez jerseys.
They will. And, Jimmy can't stay healthy, so there's going to be minutes. There's going to be hidden minutes for people like Duncan Robinson and Josh Richardson, just because Jimmy's not going to play more than 65 games.
That was the point I was going to make about the Clippers. Let's go back there real quick. I feel like the whole mindset of the NBA has changed, and I'm going to call it the Mikal Bridges effect. Like, instead of these guys competing to see how many games they can not play, like Anthony Davis and LeBron and Kawhi Leonard and all these guys who sit out all these games, I feel like Anthony Davis this year is like, no, I'm playing. And Kawhi is like, no, I'm going to play. And even Kyrie, if Kyrie was healthy, Kyrie has not been healthy this year. He's been playing through a pretty bad foot injury, really got jacked up the other night. But I think if Kyrie was healthy, he'd be like, yep, I'm going to be out there. I'm going to help Luka. I feel like these guys have changed the mindset a little bit and are not so bent on making sure they miss so many games. Now, Jimmy Butler's a different story. I think Jimmy's going to miss a game a week just keep his body right for the playoffs. But a lot of these guys are Anthony Davis in particular is really trying not to miss games.
Well, the one thing I disagree with is that it's not the players who have been advocating for load management. I mean, even Anthony Davis, I know he goes to the locker room more than anybody has ever gone to the locker room, including the trainers. But, these guys don't want to sit if they don't have to sit. I mean, they love to play, but the training staffs and the conditioning people have told the teams, look, you're going to get more out of Anthony Davis if he sits every 4 games than if he plays 82 games. Kawhi Leonard, he can't do it on his knee. And now they're giving him the green light. The rule in the NBA has helped this, but I've never blamed the players for load management.
Isaiah Hartenstein, 9 points, 17 rebounds, 2 steals, 2 blocks last night. He played 39 minutes. His second highest number on the Knicks. I needed your guy, Dante DiVincenzo, to play. I don't think he even got off the bench in the second half.
Too bad.
And is Hartenstein a guy that we should be looking at picking up?
Well, when he played with the Clippers, they understood who he was, a playmaking big. I mean, that guy would get 5 assists and 8 boards in 19 minutes with the Clippers. But Tom Thibodeau has a different idea about what a big man is on his team. So he's not going to put Hartenstein at the high post to distribute. That's not his role. And that game last night, to me, was a little bit of an anomaly. Hartenstein is a great player, but I don't think on this team with this coach, he's going to be that big a factor. I mean, he starts Jericho Sims over him sometimes. I mean, that'll tell you. I mean, Thibodeau's got to be one of the most difficult guys to wrap your head around. I mean, he had Quentin Grimes in his starting lineup until yesterday. Are you kidding me?
How does Julius Randle do it, dude? I don't understand how he hasn't taken. I don't know, man. I don't know how he does it. Underdog Fantasy is the #1 platform for NBA best ball and DFS player pick'em contests. If you haven't tried Underdog yet, new Underdog users receive a first-time deposit bonus up to $100 and a free 6-month subscription to RotoWire with promo code RWNBA. That's promo code RWNBA. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or download the Underdog app today and use promo code RWNBA to claim your free RotoWire subscription and deposit bonus. Mark, have you played any Underdog?
I have not played any Underdog. You know what? I feel like if I did daily fantasy, that would be the end for me.
Yeah.
I just can't. I can't imagine making the micro decisions on a daily basis of that. I'm sorry.
Well,
I'm not made for that.
The thing I love about Underdog is you can put like $20 in your account. You can bet $1 and pick a 5-leg parlay of just over-unders for guys scoring points or getting a triple-double. And if it hits, you win $100. And you only spent $1 for $100 worth of entertainment. Like, it's so fun. I love it. All right, I got a segment here called Panic Meter. Like, are there any NBA players that are scaring us right now? I'll kick it off. Wembanyama going to miss his second game tonight. Is Pop going to start sitting this guy 1 out of every 4 games? Thoughts?
I would say absolutely not. I mean, Pop knows that Wembanyama is the future. He's not going to get better by sitting on the bench. There's no point. They're not tanking for Wembanyama. They've done that already. Fast forward to 2023.
They've already tanked for Wembanyama. There's no need to do it again this year.
For a lot of teams, not just the Spurs. Nobody has any excuses.
Yeah. Can you help any of us understand how bad of a fit Jordan Poole is in Washington?
So the new guy in my league drafted Jordan Poole in the first round. Last pick, 16th. And I saw him. I didn't know this guy. He's a friend of a friend. I met him at a wedding. And he's like, hey, I got Jordan Poole. He says, I went with the ESPN scoring system in your league, and Jordan Poole was the guy to take there. I said, be careful. Jordan Poole is not who you think he is. He could really screw this up. And the guy looked at me like, wow, what a weird thing to say at a wedding. But no, Jordan Poole will screw it up. I mean, I'm not going to be the guy to defend Draymond Green for punching Jordan Poole in the face. Did a lot more damage to Draymond than to Jordan Poole. But there's a reason why Jordan Poole gets – you notice it wasn't Klay Thompson or Kevon Looney that got smacked in the face. It was Jordan Poole, and now he's the Washington Wizards featured player. Good luck with that.
Well, and Tyus Jones has not been very good either. He's been a little bit better lately, but neither one of those guys, like I thought both of those guys were going to go to Washington and kind of go off. And, I thought Jordan Poole was going to score a ton of points just because he's so undisciplined. He's going to go out there and shoot. It'd be like if Cam Thomas went to Washington or Detroit, like, oh, he's going to lead the league in scoring. But it just hasn't worked out that way because I think Jordan Poole is not only undisciplined, but he's also sort of in his own head. Like he can't get out of his own way. I don't know, but he's been a fantasy disaster, and it's going to get to the point where people are actually possibly dropping him at some point this season if he doesn't get it turned around.
Well, the guy who drafted him put him on the trade block on the league page. And I thought about it and I said, well, what would I offer for Jordan Poole? I really don't know if I would part with a valuable guy for Jordan Poole. And even when Draymond was healthy and I had him, I didn't think I would trade Draymond for Jordan Poole at that point.
I have an idea, Mark. I have a 3/4 eaten bag of Lay's potato chips here. Would you give that up for Jordan Poole?
I would give that and another one of Snickers for Jordan Poole.
Are the Rockets too deep for fantasy? Are they playing too many guys for anyone other than Alperen Şengün to catch fire and do anything good? Because I feel like they are. I feel like one night it's Fred VanVleet, one night it's Şengün, one night it's Jalen Green. It's like it's we saw Tari Eason get hot for about 4 games in a row, and now Tari Eason played. Well, he was decent last night. I think he had like 14 points and 8 boards. I needed a double-double out of him, but whatever. I'm just worried about them having enough minutes to go around.
Well, let me give you some facts. Last 3 games, Tari Eason's minutes have gone from 23 to 30 to 33. Jabari Smith's minutes, the last 2 have gone down from 28 to 23. Now, I know Jabari Smith's your number 1 pick. You got to feature him. But you know what? He just doesn't do that much. I mean, you want Tari Eason as your finisher in your lineup. And I think knowing Udoka and what he values, Tari Eason fills that bill. I mean, he actually ran a play for Tari Eason ATO with 4 minutes left. They come out and Eason does a Pierce cut under the hoop and Şengün lobs one to him. I mean, that was out of the timeout. And the broadcast crew was stunned. But I've not been that familiar with Eason because I don't watch the Rockets a lot, but I picked him up and I've started watching the Rockets a lot, and I'm in love. You thought I liked Caleb Martin. I really love Tari Eason. And I think he's not going to be a guy you can take off the court. You know, I mean, Jalen Green is really an overrated player. I mean, he's not a great shooter. He hasn't advanced. His points per game have gone from 22 last year to 17. He doesn't shoot for a high percentage. He doesn't dish the ball. He's not a rebounder. I mean, would you rather have Tari Eason on the floor in those critical minutes against Cleveland in overtime or Jabari Smith and Jalen Green?
Yeah, and we've been talking about Eason a lot on this podcast, Rick and I, on Thursdays and also here. And Eason's coming on, man. And he's available, Mark, he's rostered in 14.9% of ESPN leagues.
Bad. So
Eason's sitting out there. I think it's time to pick him up. I was worried last night. I looked at him. I had him getting me a double-double in underdog. It didn't happen, and he was only like 17 minutes when I looked.
Right.
The third quarter, I was like, that's not good. But then by the end, he almost had the double-double, and his minutes were back to normal. So I think Eason's arrow is pointing up. I think you're right. Jabari Smith's arrow might be pointing down a little bit. Now, this week, the rest of this week, Houston plays – they have a 4-game week. And Christmas week, like everybody else, they have a 3-game week. Some teams play 4, some teams play 2. But then they go 4-4-4 after that. And that may be when Tari Eason really launches into orbit fantasy-wise. So good time to think about grabbing Tari Eason. Do you have any guys that you're pressing the panic button on, Mark?
Well, you know, I want to talk to you about Draymond because I picked him I kind of panicked because, and I don't usually do this, but I noticed on my team I didn't have a center. And it was like the 8th, 9th round. And I was like, oh my God, there's only one center on this board that I would take, and it's Draymond. So Kuminga, who was one of my main targets at that moment, I said, I'll get him later. He's ranked so low. I took Draymond, and I was sick about it. Kuminga was the next pick, and I couldn't sleep that night. But my point is, I've watched Draymond play, and the product on the court this year, I would say he's been the second best player on the Warriors. Curry, obviously, and then Draymond. Clay has not done a whole lot until recently. Wiggins has been horrible. And you know what you're going to get from Looney. But now he's sitting there for weeks. And everybody, guys like you are saying, hey, you got to drop Draymond immediately. And I know that. But you know what? In a deep league like mine, 16-team league, if you drop Draymond Green, he will be snatched on a waiver claim immediately. And someone else who has lousy players on their bench, like 3 of them, is going to wait it out. So I think that's the one thing I don't see. I might have to drop him if my team can't, stay healthy. But I don't think he's an automatic drop right now in a deep league.
Not in a 16-team league. No, you're right. Because your league, and you know how many centers you have to start, and how many centers are out there, and like every league is different. Now, in my 12-team league, where I don't want to have Draymond Green to begin with, if I'm somehow holding on to him and he gets kicked out of the league for a month, I'm going to have no qualms with dropping him and picking somebody else up. There's decent players out there, but 16 teams is no joke. That's an extra 48 players compared to what a 12-team league has, and that's a lot of guys. And you take those 48 players sitting out there in 12-team leagues at the the best 48 on the wire, and take them out of there, you're left with a bunch of nothing. Right. So it is a big deal. It's not automatic. Nobody's automatic drop if you're in a 16-team league. You gotta look at it. So get off my lawn. This is where old guys like you and I sit around and complain about the good old days. A couple of things I want the kids off my lawn about. There are no NBA games again this coming Sunday, Mark. It's the 3rd Sunday out of the last 4 with no NBA action. I don't remember this ever happening before. I think the in-season tournament had something to do with it. Christmas Eve has something to do with it, which I get that. Christmas Eve, we don't play on that Sunday if it falls on Sunday, but I need my Sunday hoops. That's the last day of the week. That's when your team made the most epic comeback of all time against your son. Had that day not been there, who knows what would have happened. So I am not okay with not playing on Sundays.
Well, we have a maximum games cap in our league, and it's really served us well. But ESPN tells you how many games that cap is based on how many days they play each week. And when they play 5 days a week, the cap goes way down. But the problem with it for me has been sometimes there's a normal number of games. This week is a good example of it. There's a normal number of NBA games for this week, even though there are no games on Christmas Eve. So we have to go against the ESPN box score and tell the whole league every week how many games they can start. So that's been the only issue for me, is the confusion.
And then my dad put something on Facebook the other day about LeBron James is washed up. We don't like you anyway, I think is what it said. It was like he just copied and pasted it from some other old guy's Facebook page. And I was like, this is the most idiotic thing I've ever heard of in my life. Like, LeBron James just won the in-season tournament. He's the best 40-year-old guy to ever play basketball. He's still in his prime. Like, he may be a lot of things, but he's not washed up. And then my dad came back at me and he's like, well, I'm just mad he didn't stand up for the anthem. I'm like, well, he walked in the arena while the anthem was playing. You tell me, I'm not going to get into all of that. But that's a little shout out to my dad. Like, come on, get off my lawn and leave LeBron alone for a second. You got any old guy rants you need to go on?
I'm a happy guy, Doc. You know that. I don't have any problems with anything anymore.
Nothing. No problems. Not a worry in the world.
Nah.
My underdog bad beat last night was DiVincenzo playing 19 minutes. I already said that, though. I don't know why he didn't get in the second half. Tom Thibodeau, man. Tom Thibodeau is something else.
He is.
You talk about a guy who isn't happy all the time, like you and me. Like, he's always over there, his arms across, his hair's a mess. He's screaming at Julius Randle constantly. I don't know how those guys do it.
He's actually a very cool dude. I mean, if you said to me, who's the one person that we know of in sports who is very different from what they appear to be, that would be my pick. That guy has a heart of gold. He's very kind. He's gentle. He cares about you. He's different. I mean, on the court, he looks like just this ranting, angry, get off my lawn guy like you're talking about, but he's not that.
Keegan Murray, the guy, hot players I'm excited about. Keegan Murray's 11 straight triples the other night was pretty fun.
Yeah.
Do you have Keegan Murray?
I don't. I would have loved to have him. I thought he would really break out this year, which he hasn't until the other night. My guys are, other than the ones we talked about, I'll tell you a guy who was traded in my league, and I think it was a big mistake. The guy who helped me win that Sunday against my son, Austin Reeves. I mean, come on. That guy, LeBron has full confidence in him. The last 6 games, he's averaging just under 20 points, 6 dimes, and 5 rebounds. I mean, come on. That's better than Jalen Brown is giving you.
And he draws contact. He's aggressive. He plays the right way. Like, I love Austin Reeves. And I think LeBron and AD love Austin Reeves too. And I think LA loves Austin Reeves. Like, he's a great fit for that team.
The problem is Darvin Ham started Cam Reddish over him the other night and they lost. Maybe he won't make that mistake again.
Yeah, I like Reeves too. You got anybody else? Anybody else on your list? Are you good?
Well, other than Tari Eason and Caleb Martin, I love Pajemski. And I think he's really a very fine basketball player. I love how he finds the ball off the rim. I love the passes he makes. He's not scared of anybody or anything. And I think the Kerr is really lucky to have that guy.
For those of you who don't know, Pajemski plays for the Warriors. And I mean, he's available in a ton of leagues. I still get a lot of questions. Should I pick up Zach Collins or should I pick up this guy? And my first question nowadays is Pajemski available? Because I think that's the guy you got to pick up, because with Draymond out, Pajemski, Dario Saric, and Kuminga, some combo of those three, but Pajemski's the hustle guy. He's the both ends of the court guy. He's the my coach loves me guy. So I'm with you on that. Another side note, Malik Monk available in a ton of leagues. Has at least 5 assists in 7 straight games. And he scored in double figures in 6 of those. So I think Malik Monk is a guy that is worth looking at in every format right now. Mark, my underdog bet for tonight, I'm going with Zach Collins to get a double-double because no Wembanyama.
Ooh.
Okay.
I see that.
Those are tricky though, man. Those scrub double-doubles will get you. Brandon Ingram, who's been scoring at will lately, only needs over 21.5 against Memphis. I like that.
Big.
I'm going Ja Morant over 24.5. And then I'm going Zion over 22.5. Ironically, a bunch of those guys you just got done talking about earlier in the show. That's my underdog. Four to hit for $50.
Wow.
For $1. Now you're going to get sucked in. I can feel it.
I'm just listening to you. I have no inclination to do it.
All right, Mark. Well, it has been fantastic having you on. Oh, I do want to say, click on subscribe and like and all that stuff. That helps us out. If you want to try RotoWire for free, you can do so at rotowire.com/try. I think I made it through this entire podcast without saying the other roto word, which is still a struggle for me, but I'm getting better. And Mark, it was awesome having you on. Miss watching you and having you send me your bits before they came out when you were at ESPN. And we got to get back in a league together, man. Get me back in the Hoops League next year.
We should. I'll pull you into mine. As soon as someone leaves me in the lurch, I'm going for the dock.
All right. And then we'll also we need to go see a show together sometime, some sort of music thing. We'll do that too.
Absolutely.
All right, everybody. I'll be back on Thursday with Rick Kamla, and I'm also involved in a pot-a-thon that day for those of us who got ripped off by the Sportstopia guy. If you haven't checked that out, check out my Twitter, read about that, and come see us potting for 24 hours on Thursday. For Mark, I'm Doc. See you Thursday.